Commander Vexthal stood in the center of the command bridge, his green scales catching the blue light from the control panels. The Zephyrian Imperial Command Station floated in space above the gas giant Kelthra Prime. It was a massive structure, built to watch over this important sector of the Empire. For 20 years, Vexthal had served here, and nothing unusual had ever happened. The morning shift had just started when technician Zalkara called out from her station. Her voice carried a note of confusion that made Vexthal turn toward her. "Commander, I am detecting something strange on the long-range sensors," she said, her clawed fingers dancing across the control surface. "There is a large object entering our sector from the outer rim." Vexthal walked over to her station. The main screen showed a green grid with small dots marking known ships and stations. But there was something new. A red dot was moving slowly toward their position, still far away, but definitely heading in their direction. "What kind of ship is it?" Vexthal asked, leaning forward to get a better look at the readings. "That is the problem, Commander," Zalkara replied, her voice growing more worried. "The computer cannot identify it. The ship is huge, much larger than anything in our databases. It appears to be at least 1 kilometer long." Vexthal felt his blood run cold. In all his years of service, he had never seen an unknown ship in Imperial space. The Zephyrian Empire controlled this entire region of the galaxy. They had conquered 12 different alien species over the past century. Every ship that flew through their space was either Zephyrian or belonged to one of their subject races. "Are you certain the sensors are working correctly?" he asked. "Yes, Commander. I have run 3 separate scans. The readings are accurate." Vexthal turned to his communications officer. "Lieutenant Kexvar, try to contact the unknown vessel. Demand identification and purpose." Far away in the darkness of space, the USS Dakota moved through the star system at a steady pace. The human battleship was an impressive sight, its gray hull marked with the blue and white symbols of Earth's deep space fleet. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair, reading reports from his exploration team. The Dakota was part of humanity's first major exploration mission beyond their home sector. They had been traveling for 8 months, mapping new star systems and looking for signs of intelligent life. So far, they had found several habitable worlds but no advanced civilizations. "Captain," called out Lieutenant Commander Lisa Harper from the tactical station, "we are receiving a transmission from somewhere in this system." Morrison looked up from his reports. "What kind of transmission?" "It appears to be a demand for identification, sir. The language is completely unknown to our computers. The transmission is coming from a large space station orbiting the 4th planet." Morrison stood up and walked to the main viewer. The screen showed the gas giant ahead of them, a beautiful blue and green world surrounded by rings of ice and rock. Near the planet, he could see a small dot that the computer marked as an artificial structure. "So we have found intelligent life after all," Morrison said quietly. "Commander Blake, please report to the bridge." A few minutes later, Commander Sarah Blake entered the bridge. She was the Dakota's specialist in alien languages and first contact procedures. Blake had spent years studying theoretical alien communication methods, but this was her first real chance to use her training. "Captain, I monitored the transmission," Blake said as she took her position at the communications console. "The signal is definitely artificial and appears to be some kind of standard greeting or challenge. The mathematical patterns suggest a complex language structure," Morrison nodded. "Prepare a response. Keep it simple and peaceful. We don't want to start a war on our first day of contact." Blake worked quickly, using the ship's computers to create a basic mathematical sequence that would show intelligence. She added simple pictographs that depicted the Dakota as a peaceful exploration vessel. The message was transmitted on the same frequency as the alien signal back on the Zephyrian command station. Vexthal listened to the translation of the human response. The Empire's computers had partially decoded the message, but the results were confusing. "They claim to be peaceful explorers," reported Lieutenant Kexvar. "But, Commander, their ship design is completely unknown. We have no records of any species building vessels like this." Vexthel studied the tactical display. The unknown ship was still approaching, and now he could see more details. It was indeed massive, covered with strange projections that could be weapons or sensors. The hull design was unlike anything in Zephyrian records. Have they responded to our demand for surrender? Vexthel asked. No, Commander. They continue to transmit peaceful messages, but they have not agreed to follow our escort ships to the detention facility. Vexthel felt anger building in his chest. For over a century, the Zephyrian Empire had been the dominant power in this region of space. No alien species had ever dared to enter their territory without permission. The idea that these unknown beings would ignore Imperial commands was unthinkable. Prepare 6 heavy cruisers for immediate departure, he ordered. We will show these aliens the power of the Zephyrian Empire. On the Dakota's bridge, Chief Engineer Ryan Collins called up from the engine room. Captain, I am detecting multiple ships launching from that space station. They appear to be military vessels. Morrison returned to his command chair. How many ships, Chief? 6 vessels, sir. Each one is approximately 400 meters long. They are moving to intercept our course. Lisa Harper checked her tactical displays. Captain, the approaching ships are armed with energy weapons. Their power signatures suggest advanced plasma cannons and particle beam arrays. Morrison considered his options. The Dakota was equipped with the latest human military technology, but they were far from home and completely alone. Starting a fight with unknown aliens could end badly for everyone involved. Commander Blake, transmit another message, he said. Make it clear that we are peaceful and willing to communicate. Tell them we were not aware that this space was claimed by anyone. Blake worked quickly to create a new message. She used simple pictographs showing the Dakota's peaceful intentions and added mathematical sequences that represented concepts, like friendship and cooperation. The message was transmitted to the Zephyrian station, but Vexthel was no longer interested in communication. He had made his decision. The unknown aliens had entered Imperial space without permission. They had ignored demands for surrender. Now they would learn what happened to those who defied the Zephyrian Empire. All ships, you are authorized to use force if necessary, Vexthel transmitted to the cruiser squadron. Disable the alien vessel and prepare to take prisoners. The 6 Zephyrian cruisers moved into attack formation. Each ship was a proven weapon of war, capable of destroying entire planetary defense fleets. Their crews were experienced warriors, who had fought in dozens of battles across the Empire. As the alien ships approached, Morrison watched the tactical display with growing concern. The vessels were clearly military and appeared to be taking aggressive positions around the Dakota. Captain, Harper reported, the alien ships are powering up their weapons. I recommend we go to battle stations. Morrison hesitated for a moment. Once he gave that order, there would be no going back. The first contact between humans and this alien empire would become a military confrontation. All hands, this is the captain, Morrison announced over the ship's communication system. We are about to make first contact with an unknown alien species. Their intentions appear hostile, but we will continue to seek a peaceful resolution. However, I am ordering all departments to battle readiness. We will defend ourselves if necessary. Throughout the Dakota, human crew members moved to their combat positions. The ship's advanced systems came online, and weapons that had never been fired in anger prepared for their first test against alien technology. In the cold darkness of space, 2 very different civilizations were about to meet. Neither side understood the other, and both believed they were acting in self-defense. The stage was set for a confrontation that would change the balance of power in this entire region of the galaxy. The 6 Zephyrian cruisers moved through space in perfect formation. Each ship was a masterpiece of Imperial engineering, built to strike fear into the hearts of the Empire's enemies. Captain Vexthel commanded the lead vessel, the Crimson Talon. He had fought in over 30 battles and had never known defeat. All ships maintain attack formation, Vexthel ordered through the communication system. We will surround the alien vessel and force it to surrender. If it resists, we will disable its engines and weapons. The alien ship continued moving forward, apparently unaware of the danger it was in. Vexkull studied the tactical display with growing interest. The vessel was indeed massive, but its design was strange. Instead of the smooth curves that most advanced species used, it had angular sections and odd projections all over its hull. "Captain," reported his tactical officer, "the alien ship has some kind of energy shield around it. Our sensors cannot penetrate it completely." Vexkull nodded. Many species had developed energy shields, but the Zephyrian Empire had learned to overcome them all. Their plasma cannons could burn through any known defensive system on the Dakota's bridge. Captain Morrison watched the alien ships approach. The vessels were moving in a pattern that looked like a hunting formation. Each ship was heavily armed and clearly built for war. "Captain," Lisa Harper called out from her station, "the alien ships are now in weapons range. They are spreading out to surround us." Morrison looked at the tactical display. The 6 ships were taking positions around the Dakota, forming a cage of firepower. Any movement would bring them into the firing line of at least 3 vessels. "Commander." "Blake, try one more transmission," Morrison said. "Make it very clear that we are peaceful and want to talk." Blake worked frantically at her console. She created a message using every peaceful symbol she could think of. The transmission included mathematical sequences that represented concepts. Like friendship, cooperation, and nonviolence, the message was sent to all 6 Zephyrian ships. Captain Vexkull listened to the translation with growing impatience. The aliens continued to claim they were peaceful, but their ship was clearly a military vessel. No peaceful explorer needed a ship that size. "Alien vessel," Vexkull transmitted. "You are ordered to shut down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will be met with force." Morrison listened to the partial translation that Blake had managed to create. The meaning was clear enough. The aliens wanted the Dakota to surrender. "Captain," Chief Engineer Ryan Collins called from the engine room, "I need to tell you something important about our power systems. We are running on stealth mode right now. Our real power output is much higher than what their sensors can detect." Morrison raised an eyebrow. "How much higher?" "About 3 times what they think, sir. The experimental stealth system is masking our true capabilities. They have no idea what this ship can really do." This information changed everything. Morrison had been thinking of the Dakota as outgunned and outnumbered. But if the aliens could not see their true power, then perhaps they had advantages that nobody realized. "Chief, keep the stealth system running," Morrison ordered. "Let them think we are weaker than we really are." Captain Vexkull grew tired of waiting for a response. The alien ship had ignored his demands for surrender. It was time to show these newcomers the power of the Zephyrian Empire. "Fire a warning shot across their bow," he ordered. "Let them see what our plasma cannons can do." The Crimson Talon's main weapon charged with a deep humming sound. The plasma cannon was a terrible weapon, capable of melting through the strongest armor. A bright green bolt of energy shot across space toward the human ship. On the Dakota's bridge, alarms began to sound. "Captain," Harper called out, "incoming plasma bolt. It will pass just in front of us." Morrison gripped his command chair. The aliens had fired the first shot. Even though it was a warning, it was still an act of aggression. The plasma bolt streaked toward the Dakota at high speed. But as it approached, something unexpected happened. The ship's automated defense systems activated. A series of small laser turrets emerged from the hull and fired precise beams at the incoming energy bolt. The plasma bolt was vaporized instantly. The Dakota's point defense system had destroyed the attack so quickly that it seemed to disappear in mid-flight. Captain Vexkull stared at his tactical display in disbelief. The alien ship had just destroyed a plasma bolt with surgical precision. He had never seen such accurate defensive fire. "How did they do that?" his tactical officer asked, his voice filled with confusion. "I do not know," Vexkull replied, "but it does not matter. One ship cannot defeat 6 cruisers. All vessels, prepare for attack." On the Dakota, Morrison realized that their defensive systems had just revealed some of their capabilities. The aliens now knew that humans had advanced laser weapons. "Captain," Collins called from engineering. Our defense systems worked perfectly. But now they know we have point defense lasers. It cannot be helped, Morrison replied. Harper, what is the status of our weapons? All systems are ready, Captain. Railguns are loaded and charged. Missile tubes are prepared for launch. Morrison had hoped to avoid a fight, but the aliens seemed determined to force one. He could not let them capture his ship and crew. The Dakota carried too many advanced technologies that could be dangerous in the wrong hands. All hands, this is the captain, Morrison announced. We are about to engage in combat with hostile alien forces. All crew members should brace for battle. The Zephyrian cruisers moved into attack position. Each ship powered up its weapons and prepared to fire. Captain Thexkel was confident that 6 experienced warships could easily defeat one alien vessel, no matter how advanced its defenses. Might be all ships open fire, Thexkel ordered. 6 Zephyrian cruisers unleashed their weapons at the same time. Plasma bolts, particle beams, and ion cannons all fired at the Dakota. The combined firepower was enough to destroy a small moon, but the human ship was ready. The Dakota's point defense systems activated again, but this time on a much larger scale. Dozens of laser turrets emerged from the hull, creating a web of defensive fire around the ship. The incoming energy weapons were met by precise laser fire. Most of the attacks were destroyed or deflected away from the ship. A few shots got through, but they struck the Dakota's energy shields and caused no damage, Captain. Thexkel watched in amazement as his fleet's attack was almost completely neutralized. The alien ship had defensive systems unlike anything he had ever seen. Sir, his tactical officer reported, their defensive fire is incredibly accurate. Our weapons are being destroyed in mid-flight. Impossible, Thexkel growled. No ship can defend against 6 cruisers at once, but the evidence was right in front of him. The alien vessel was not only surviving their attack, it was making their weapons look ineffective on the Dakota's bridge. Morrison watched as their defenses held against the alien assault. The ship's advanced systems were working perfectly, but he knew they could not just defend forever. Harper, return fire, Morrison ordered. Use the railguns. Show them what kinetic weapons can do. The Dakota's main weapons were unlike anything the Zephyrians had ever encountered. Instead of energy beams, the railguns fired solid metal projectiles at tremendous speeds. The bullets were accelerated by magnetic fields until they reached a significant fraction of the speed of light. 3 railgun rounds fired from the Dakota's forward turrets. The projectiles were invisible as they crossed space, moving too fast. For normal sensors to track, the first round struck the Crimson Talon's main shield generator. The Zephyrian energy shields were designed to stop plasma and particle beams, but they were useless against solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. The projectile punched through the shield like it was not there. It struck the ship's hull and tore a massive hole in the armor. The Crimson Talon shuddered under the impact, and alarms began sounding throughout the vessel. What was that? Thexkel demanded, struggling to stay on his feet as his ship rocked from the impact. Unknown weapon type, Captain, his tactical officer replied, his voice shaking. It appears to be some kind of kinetic projectile, but moving at impossible speeds. The second and third railgun rounds struck 2 other Zephyrian cruisers. Both ships suffered severe damage, their hulls torn open by the high-speed impacts. One vessel lost its main engines and began drifting helplessly through space. In less than 10 seconds, the Dakota had crippled half of the Zephyrian attack force. The remaining 3 cruisers continued firing, but their weapons were having no effect on the human ship. Morrison watched the tactical display with mixed feelings. He had not wanted to fight, but the aliens had left him no choice. The Dakota's superior technology was proving itself in combat, but he worried about what would happen next. Captain, Harper reported, the alien ships are pulling back. 2 of them appear to be severely damaged, Morrison nodded. Cease fire, let them retreat if they want to. But Captain Thexkel was not ready to give up. He had never retreated from a battle in his entire career. Even with half his fleet damaged, he was determined to defeat the alien vessel. All ships, continue the attack, he ordered. We will not be defeated by a single enemy ship. The battle was far from over. The first exchange of fire had shown that human technology was more advanced than anyone had expected. High Admiral Korthvex stood in the war room of the Imperial Palace on Zephyria Prime, the capital world of the Empire. The chamber was filled with holographic displays showing star maps, fleet positions, and battle reports. The Admiral was a massive Zephyrian, his dark green scales marked with the silver patterns that showed his high rank. A communication officer approached him with urgent news. Admiral, we have received a priority transmission from Commander Vexthal at the Kelthera station. Korthvex turned to face the officer. What does the commander report? Sir, he reports that an unknown alien vessel has defeated half of a cruiser. Squadron, the ship appears to have weapons and defenses that our forces cannot match. The Admiral's eyes narrowed. In over 40 years of military service, he had never heard of a single alien ship defeating multiple Zephyrian cruisers. The Empire's military had conquered every species they had encountered. Show me the battle recordings, Korthvex ordered. The main display screen activated, showing the footage from the Crimson Talon sensors. The Admiral watched as the strange angular ship destroyed incoming plasma bolts with precise laser fire. Then he saw the mysterious weapon that had torn through the cruiser's shields and armor like they were made of paper. What kind of weapon is that? He asked. Unknown, sir, the intelligence officer replied. Our computers cannot identify the attack method. The projectiles appear to be solid matter, but they move at speeds that should be impossible for kinetic. Weapons. Korthvex studied the recordings again. The alien ship was unlike anything in the Empire's databases. Its design was crude compared to Zephyrian engineering, but its weapons were devastatingly effective. Have we identified the species that built this vessel? He asked. No, sir. The ship's design does not match any known civilization. The aliens themselves appear to be a completely new species. The Admiral felt a chill run down his spine. For over a century, the Zephyrian Empire had been the dominant power in this region of space. They had mapped every star system, cataloged every species, and conquered every world worth taking. The idea that an unknown civilization could exist so close to their borders was deeply disturbing. Send orders to all fleet commanders, Korthvex said. I want every available ship to search for more vessels like this one. If there is one alien ship in our space, there may be others. Far away at the Kelthera station, Commander Vexthal was dealing with his own problems. The battle with the unknown ship had ended in disaster. 3 of his cruisers were severely damaged, and the alien vessel had simply continued on its course, as if nothing had happened. Commander, Technician Zelkara called out, I am detecting 2 more ships approaching the alien vessel. Vexthal rushed to her station. The sensor display showed 2 new contacts moving toward the first alien ship. These vessels were smaller than the first one, but they were clearly built by the same species. Are they warships? He asked. I do not think so, sir. One appears to be some kind of research vessel. The other looks like a supply ship. But they are definitely from the same civilization. Vexthal watched as the 3 alien ships met in space. They did not attack each other, which meant they were working together. The commander realized that this was not just a single lost ship. This was an organized expedition from an unknown species. Send an immediate report to High Admiral Korthvex, he ordered. Tell him we now face 3 alien vessels, and they appear to be part of a larger fleet. On the research vessel Henderson, Dr. Amy Foster was analyzing the sensor data from the Dakota's battle. The Henderson was not a warship, but it carried the most advanced scientific equipment in the human fleet. This is fascinating, she told her assistant, Dr. Kevin Price. The alien weapons are entirely energy-based. They use plasma cannons, particle beams, and ion weapons. But they have no kinetic weapons at all. Is that unusual? Price asked. Very unusual. Most species develop both energy and kinetic weapons. The fact that these aliens use only energy weapons suggests something interesting about their technology base. Foster continued her analysis. The alien ships were well designed and clearly advanced, but they seemed to focus on specific types of technology while ignoring others. "Kevin, look at this," she said, pointing to her display. "The alien ships have no point defense systems. They rely entirely on their main shields for protection. That is why our railguns were so effective." On the supply ship Phoenix, Captain Don Roberts was receiving reports from both the Dakota and the Henderson. The Phoenix was the smallest of the three human vessels, but it carried spare parts and supplies for the entire expedition. "Captain Morrison," Roberts transmitted to the Dakota, "we have analyzed the alien technology. Their weapons are powerful, but they have some serious weaknesses." Morrison's voice came back over the communication channel. "What kind of weaknesses?" "They appear to have developed their technology by conquering other species rather than through original research. Dr. Foster believes they have been taking the best weapons from each species they defeat, but they never learn to combine different technologies effectively." This information was crucial. If the aliens had been building their military by stealing technology from conquered species, then they might not understand how to fight against something completely new. On the mining world of Drakmor, thousands of kilometers away, the enslaved Kelvani workers were hearing whispers of something incredible. Word was spreading through the slave camps that strange new ships had appeared in Zephyrian space. Gregtol, an old Kelvani who had been a slave for 30 years, listened to the rumors with growing excitement. "They say the Empire's warships could not defeat a single alien vessel," he whispered to his fellow workers. "That is impossible," replied his friend Vexilin. "The Zephyrians have the strongest military in the galaxy. They defeated our entire fleet in a single battle. But what if it is true?" Gregtol said. "What if there is finally a species that can stand against the Empire?" Similar conversations were taking place on a dozen worlds throughout the Empire. The subject species had lived under Zephyrian rule for generations, but now they were hearing that the Empire might not be invincible after all on the agricultural world of Minden. The Torgan farmers stopped their work to listen to underground radio broadcasts. The Torgans had been conquered 50 years ago, and their planet was now used to grow food for the Empire. "The reports are confirmed," the secret broadcaster announced. 3 Zephyrian cruisers have been defeated by a single alien ship. The Empire's forces are retreating from the Kalthara sector. The news spread like wildfire through the Torgan settlements. Children who had been born into slavery heard for the first time that the Empire might not last forever back on Zephyra Prime. High Admiral Korthvex was dealing with reports of unrest throughout the Empire. The news of the military defeat was causing problems on dozens of worlds. "Sir," his intelligence chief reported, "we are receiving reports of increased rebel activity on 7 worlds. The subject species are interpreting our defeat as a sign of weakness." Korthvex slammed his fist on the table. "One battle does not make us weak. The Empire has thousands of ships and controls hundreds of worlds. These aliens may have surprised us, but they cannot defeat the full might of the Zephyrian military." "What are your orders, Admiral?" "Mobilize the 3rd Battle Fleet. I want every available ship to converge on the Kalthara sector. We will show these aliens and our subject species that the Empire is still strong." The 3rd Battle Fleet was the largest military force in the Empire. It consisted of 47 warships, including the massive dreadnought Dominion of Kalthara. The fleet had never been defeated in battle and had conquered more worlds than any other military unit. As the orders went out, thousands of Zephyrian officers and crew members prepared for the largest military operation in recent history. The Empire was preparing to crush the alien threat with overwhelming force. On the Dakota, Captain Morrison was meeting with his senior officers. The 3 human ships were alone in hostile space, facing an entire empire that saw them as invaders. "Captain," Commander Blake said, "I have been analyzing the alien communications. They are mobilizing a large fleet to attack us." Morrison nodded. "How large?" "At least 40 ships, sir, possibly more. They appear to be treating us as a major threat to their empire." Morrison looked at his officers. 3 human ships against an entire alien fleet. The odds were terrible, but they had advantages that the aliens did not understand. Chief Collins, what is the status of our experimental weapons? Morrison asked. All systems are functioning perfectly, Captain. The railguns, point defense lasers, and missile systems are ready for combat. Morrison made his decision. We cannot run from this fight. If we retreat, the aliens will follow us back to human space. We have to make a stand here. The stage was set for the largest space battle in the history of the galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire was bringing its full military might to bear on 3 human ships. But the humans had advantages that the Empire could not imagine. The battle that would determine the fate of both civilizations was about to begin. The third battle fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. 47 warships arranged themselves in attack patterns that had been used successfully for over a century. At the center of the fleet was the Dominion of Kelthra, the most powerful ship in the Zephyrian Empire. High Admiral Korthvex stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the tactical display with satisfaction. The alien ships appeared as 3 small dots on the screen, vastly outnumbered by the Imperial fleet. Admiral, his tactical officer reported, we have the alien vessels on sensors. 2 of them appear to be non-military ships, only one is a warship. Korthvex smiled, showing his sharp teeth. 3 ships against 47. These aliens will learn what happens to those who challenge the Empire. The Admiral had brought his best ships and most experienced crews. Each vessel had fought in multiple battles and had never known defeat. The combined firepower of the fleet was enough to destroy entire planetary defense systems. All ships, take attack positions, Korthvex ordered. We will surround the aliens and destroy them quickly. On the Dakota's bridge, Captain Morrison watched as the massive alien fleet approached. The tactical display showed dozens of enemy ships moving to surround his small force. The odds were overwhelming, but Morrison had been preparing for this moment. Captain, Lisa Harper reported from her station, I count 47 enemy vessels. They have us outnumbered 15-1. Morrison nodded calmly. Chief Collins, what is the status of our weapon systems? Collins's voice came over the communication channel from engineering. All railguns are charged and ready, Captain. Point defense systems are online. The experimental missile launchers are prepared for combat. Commander Blake, any luck with diplomatic contact? Blake shook her head sadly. I have tried every frequency, Captain. They are not responding to our peace offers. They appear determined to fight. Morrison looked at his officers. These were good people who had volunteered for a dangerous mission to explore unknown space. Now they faced the most powerful military force in this region of the galaxy. All hands, this is the captain, Morrison announced over the ship's communication system. We are about to face overwhelming odds, but we have something these aliens do not expect. We have human ingenuity, superior technology, and the determination to protect our freedom. Today we fight not just for ourselves, but for the future of humanity. The crew of the Dakota responded with determination. Every person on the ship knew their job and was ready to do it. The humans were outnumbered, but they were not outmatched. High Admiral Korthvex studied the alien ships through his flagships sensors. The 3 vessels had formed a tight defensive formation, with a large warship in front and the 2 smaller ships behind it. Foolish, the Admiral muttered. They are trying to protect their non-military vessels. That formation will make them easy targets. The Zephyrian fleet continued to advance. Each ship was positioned to maximize their firepower while minimizing the aliens' ability to fight back. It was a classic Imperial battle formation that had never failed. Admiral, the communication officer called out, we are receiving a transmission. From the alien ships? What do they say? They are still requesting peaceful negotiations, sir. They claim they do not want to fight. Korthvex laughed harshly. Too late for that. They should have surrendered when they first entered our space. Open fire. The third battle fleet unleashed its weapons at the same time. Hundreds of plasma bolts, particle beams, and ion cannons fired at the 3 human ships. The combined attack was like a small star exploding, filling space with deadly energy, but the humans were ready. The Dakota's point defense systems activated. On full power. Dozens of laser turrets emerged from the ship's hull, creating a protective barrier around all three vessels. The incoming energy weapons were met by precisely aimed laser fire, most of the Zephyrian. Attacks were destroyed or deflected away from the human ships. The few that got through struck the Dakota's energy shields and caused minimal damage. The massive alien assault had been almost completely neutralized. "Impossible," Admiral Korthvex whispered, staring at his tactical display. "How can 3 ships defend against an entire fleet?" His tactical officer was equally shocked. "Sir, their defensive fire is beyond anything we have seen. They are destroying our weapons in mid-flight with incredible accuracy." The Admiral felt a cold fear growing in his chest. He had brought the Empire's most powerful fleet to crush 3 alien ships, but his opening attack had failed completely. "All ships, continue firing," he ordered. "Concentrate all firepower on the large vessel." The Zephyrian fleet tried again, focusing all their weapons on the Dakota, but the result was the same. The human ship's defenses were too advanced and too accurate for the alien weapons to penetrate. On the Dakota's bridge, Morrison watched as their defenses held against the massive assault. The ship's computers were tracking hundreds of incoming projectiles and destroying them with mechanical precision. "Harper, return fire," Morrison ordered. "Show them what our weapons can do." The Dakota's main rail guns fired in sequence. 6 projectiles shot out from the ship's forward turrets, accelerated to tremendous speeds by magnetic fields. The metal slugs were invisible as they crossed space, moving too fast for the Zephyrian sensors to track. The first projectile struck the heavy cruiser Sword of Victory. The kinetic round punched through the ship's energy shields like they were not there. It tore a massive hole in the cruiser's hull, causing explosions throughout the vessel. The second and third rounds hit 2 more cruisers, causing similar devastation. The Zephyrian ships had no defense against solid projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. Their energy shields were useless, and their armor was not thick enough to stop the high-velocity impacts. "What are those weapons?" Admiral Korthvex demanded, watching 3 of his ships suffer critical damage in seconds. "Unknown projectile weapons, sir," his tactical officer replied. "They appear to be firing solid matter at impossible speeds." The Admiral had never seen weapons like these. Every species the Empire had conquered used energy-based weapons. The idea of firing solid projectiles at such speeds was completely foreign. To Zephyrian thinking, the Dakota continued firing, its railguns targeting ship after ship. Each shot was carefully aimed to disable rather than destroy, but the effect was devastating. Zephyrian cruisers lost their engines, weapons, or life support systems with each impact, but the human ship was not fighting alone. The Henderson and Phoenix, though not military vessels, had their own surprises. Dr. Foster had modified the Henderson's scientific sensors to act as targeting systems for the Dakota's weapons. "Captain Morrison," Foster transmitted from the Henderson, "I am feeding you targeting data on the enemy flagship. Their main weapon appears to be charging for a massive attack." Morrison looked at the tactical display. The huge alien dreadnought was indeed preparing something special. Energy readings from the vessel were off the charts. "Harper, prepare the experimental missiles," Morrison ordered. "Target that dreadnought before it can fire." The Dakota launched 12 missiles at the Dominion of Kelthera. These were not ordinary missiles. They were equipped with the latest human technology, including advanced guidance systems and multiple warheads. Admiral Korthvex watched the incoming missiles with growing alarm. His ship's point defense systems tried to intercept them, but the human missiles were too fast and too maneuverable. They dodged the defensive fire and continued toward their target. "Brace for impact," the Admiral ordered. The missiles struck the Dominion of Kelthera in rapid succession. Each warhead was designed to penetrate heavy armor before exploding. The massive dreadnought shuddered under the impacts, its hull cracking open in multiple places. "Damage report?" Korthvex demanded, struggling to stay on his feet. "Multiple," Hull breaches, sir. Main weapons are offline. Life support is failing on decks 7 through 12. The Admiral stared at his displays in disbelief. His flagship, the most powerful vessel in the Empire, had been crippled by 3 alien ships. Around him, his fleet was being systematically destroyed by weapons they could not understand or defend against. "Sir," his communication officer called out, "we are receiving surrender demands from the alien vessels." Korthvex felt his world crumbling around him. The Empire had never surrendered to anyone. But his fleet was being torn apart by an enemy he could not defeat. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, "we have lost 19 ships. Another 15 are severely damaged. The aliens appear to be targeting our weapons and engines rather than trying to kill us." This information shocked the Admiral even more. The aliens were winning the battle, but they were not trying to massacre his crews. They were fighting with restraint, trying to disable rather than destroy. Morrison watched the tactical display as the alien fleet stopped firing. Many of their ships were drifting helplessly in space, their weapons destroyed and their engines disabled. The massive dreadnought was clearly crippled but still intact. "Captain," Blake called out, "I am receiving a transmission from the enemy flagship. They appear to be requesting terms for surrender." Morrison felt a mixture of relief and sadness. He had not wanted this fight, but the aliens had given him no choice. Now he had to decide what to do with an entire fleet of defeated enemies. "Harper, cease fire." The news of the battle spread across the galaxy like wildfire. On worlds throughout the Zephyrian Empire, enslaved populations heard the incredible story. The mighty Third Battle Fleet had been defeated by just 3 alien ships. For the first time in over a century, the Empire had been beaten in battle. On the mining world of Drakmor, the Kelvani slaves stopped their work to listen to underground broadcasts. Grekdal, the old worker who had first heard the rumors, gathered his friends around a hidden radio. "It is confirmed," the secret broadcaster announced. "The Imperial fleet has surrendered." The alien ships were victorious without losing a single vessel. The Kelvani workers looked at each other with growing excitement. Some of them had been slaves their entire lives. They had never imagined that the Empire could be defeated. "What does this mean for us?" asked young Vexilin, who had been born in the slave camps. "It means hope," Grekdal replied, tears flowing down his weathered face. "For the first time in 30 years, I have hope." Similar scenes were taking place on dozens of worlds. The Torgan farmers on Minden began organizing secret meetings. The Dalki craftsmen on Nexus Prime started planning for freedom. Everywhere the Empire ruled, subject species began to dream of independence. On Zephyria Prime, the Imperial capital, panic was spreading through the government buildings. High Command received reports of rebellions starting on 7 different worlds. The Empire's control was crumbling. General Thokmar, the second highest military officer in the Empire, stood before the Imperial Council. "The situation is critical," he reported. "Our subject species are interpreting the fleet's defeat as a sign that the Empire is weak." "How many ships do we have left?" asked Councillor Vexthara. "Fewer than 200 operational vessels spread across the entire Empire. Most of our best ships were with Admiral Korthvex's fleet." The council members looked at each other with growing fear. The Zephyrian Empire had ruled through military strength. Without their powerful fleet, they had no way to control their vast territories. At the battle site, Captain Morrison faced the most difficult decision of his career. The defeated Zephyrian fleet floated in space around his ships. Admiral Korthvex had formally surrendered, but now Morrison had to decide what to do with thousands of enemy prisoners. "Captain," Commander Blake reported, "I have established better communication with the Zephyrian Admiral. He is requesting permission to speak with you directly." Morrison nodded. "Put him through." Admiral Korthvex appeared on the main screen. The proud Zephyrian officer looked defeated and tired. His flagship was badly damaged, and many of his crew were injured. "Human Captain," Korthvex said through the translation system, "I formally surrender my fleet to you. We ask only that you treat our wounded with mercy." Morrison studied the alien admiral. Despite being enemies, he could see that Korthvex was a professional soldier who cared about his troops. "Admiral, your wounded will receive medical care," Morrison replied. "But I need to understand something. Why did your empire attack us?" "We came in peace." Korthvex was quiet for a moment. "We attacked because we feared you. The empire has ruled this region for over a century. We have never encountered a species we could not conquer. Your ships represent something we do not understand." This conversation was being recorded by Dr. Foster on the Henderson. She was learning valuable information about the Empire's structure and motivations. "Captain Morrison," Foster called over the communication channel, "I am analyzing the data from our prisoners. The Zephyrian Empire controls over 40 star systems and dozens of subject species. Most of their technology appears to be stolen from conquered civilizations." This information changed everything. Morrison realized that he was not just dealing with one alien species. The Empire controlled many different peoples, most of whom had been conquered against their will. "Blake, try to contact some of these subject species," Morrison ordered. "Find out what they want." Over the next few hours, the humans established communication with representatives of several conquered species. The messages they received were desperate pleas for help. "Human ships," transmitted Grakdal from Drakmor, speaking for the Kalvani slaves, "we have heard of your victory. We beg you not to leave us under imperial rule. We have suffered for generations." Similar messages came from the Torgans, the Dalki, and other species. All of them wanted freedom from the Empire, but they feared what would happen if the humans simply left. Morrison found himself in an impossible situation. He had come to explore space, not to liberate an entire region of the galaxy. But he could not ignore the suffering of millions of innocent beings. "Captain," Chief Collins called from engineering, "we are receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command." Morrison hoped that his superiors would have guidance for this situation. But when the message came through, it only made things more complicated. "Captain Morrison," the transmission said, "Earth Command has received your reports. You are ordered to avoid any political entanglements with alien civilizations. Return to Earth immediately for debriefing." Morrison stared at the message in disbelief. Earth Command wanted him to abandon all these enslaved species and simply leave. But he knew that if he left now, the Empire would take revenge on anyone who had helped the humans. "Captain," Blake said quietly, "if we leave now, the Empire will slaughter the rebels. Millions of innocent people will die because we gave them hope." Morrison made the hardest decision of his career. "Send a message to Earth Command. Tell them that we cannot leave yet. We have a moral obligation to help these people." Dr. Foster had been working with representatives of the subject species to develop a plan. "Captain, I think I have a solution. Instead of conquering the Empire or leaving it alone, we could help them create a new form of government." "What kind of government?" Morrison asked. "A confederation of independent worlds, based on voluntary cooperation instead of conquest. Each species would control their own planets, but they would work together for mutual benefit." The idea was revolutionary. No one in this region of space had ever tried to build a government based on equality between different species. Morrison called a meeting with Admiral Korthvex and representatives of the subject species. The gathering took place aboard the Dakota, with participants attending through holographic projection. "We propose the creation of the Kelthra Accords," Morrison explained. "A new system where all species in this region govern themselves as equals." Admiral Korthvex was skeptical. "The Empire has ruled for over a century. How can you create stability from chaos?" "By giving everyone a voice," replied Grakdal, speaking for the Kalvani. "The Empire ruled through fear. We propose to govern through cooperation." The negotiations took 3 days. Each species had different needs and concerns. The Zephyrians feared losing their homeworld. The subject species wanted guarantees that they would never be enslaved again. The humans had to find ways to balance these competing interests. Finally, they reached an agreement. The Kelthra Accords established a confederation of independent worlds. Each species would govern their own planets according to their own customs. Disputes between worlds would be resolved through peaceful negotiation. Overseen by neutral mediators, the humans agreed to stay in the region for 5 years to help establish the new system. Captain Morrison was reluctantly appointed as the first chief mediator, a position he never wanted but felt obligated to accept. The USS Dakota became the flagship of the new Confederation. Peacekeeping force, other human ships would join them. To help maintain order during the transition period, Admiral Korthvek surprised everyone by volunteering to serve as deputy mediator. "I spent my life serving the Empire," he said. "Perhaps I can spend my remaining years helping to build something better." The transformation was not easy. Some Zephyrian colonies refused to accept the new system and had to be convinced through diplomatic pressure. A few subject species wanted revenge against their former oppressors and had to be reminded that the Accords were based on forgiveness, not vengeance, but slowly the new Confederation began to work. Trade resumed between worlds. Scientific knowledge was shared freely instead of being hoarded by the Empire. Former enemies began to cooperate on projects that benefited everyone. 2 years later, Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the Dakota, looking at a star map that showed the Confederation's progress. 43 worlds now governed themselves. In freedom, former slaves had become leaders. Former enemies had become partners. "Captain," Blake reported, "we are receiving a transmission from Earth. They want to know when we will be returning home." Morrison smiled. "Tell them we will return when our work here is finished. But I think we have found something here that is worth protecting." The Dakota prepared for its next mission, patrolling the outer regions of Confederation space. There were still unknown areas to explore, new species to meet, and challenges to face. But now they were not alone. They had allies and friends throughout the galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire was gone, replaced by something better. The galaxy had been changed forever by the encounter between humans and aliens. It had been changed for the better. As the Dakota moved through space toward its next assignment, Morrison reflected on how much had happened since they first detected that Zephyrian station. They had come as explorers and become liberators.